Welcome to our webinar series, Future-Proof Your Commerce with a Modern Commerce Architecture. Some practical tasks before we start. Your microphone will be turned off through the webinar. Feel free to ask questions, use the question panel, and we will answer questions in the end of the session. You will also be able to access the recording from this webinar afterwards. So let's start. And we are the ones presenting today. I'm Dan Anderson, and I'm responsible for our strategy team and service development at Columbus. And with me, I have my colleague.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Christopher, and I work as the head of architects here at Composable Commerce. And before we get started, I just want to mention that this webinar is the first part of our webinar series around the topic modern commerce. The next one is scheduled for the 21st of October.
The agenda topics for today is we'll talk about challenges in the new normal. We'll talk about the impact of these challenges that you need to move to be being a leader, and that you have to think different. And then we'll also do an intro to Composable Commerce and MACH. The second webinar is focusing on how to approach modern commerce from an architectural standpoint. So it's more theory and why today, and more how the 21st. So let's start with the first topic of today, challenges. Today we all live in a constant change, and both B2B and B2C companies are facing a lot of challenges. The customer is changing. We have gone through, or actually going through, a huge demographic change. Customers are ready to engage with us anytime, anywhere, and requires a personalized and seamless experience. Their expectations are increasing, need of convenience, easy to use, frictionless and non-breaking customer journeys. Customers are more demanding today. We see new business model and disruption. We are cutting out the middlemen, selling direct to consumer, using marketplaces to grow. And we are seeing an increase in sharing economy with the Uber and the Airbnb as the catalyzers. The rise of cloud utilization, giving us processing power, scalability, and storage, and opened up for a lot of new possibilities to a fraction of the former cost. And then we have AI and automation, giving us possibilities for productivity and real personalization. We see a data explosion, invisibility on customers, in business activities, in marketing trends. And today, digitalization is everywhere. We see omnichannel, we have sensors, and we're always connected. Christopher, do you have any other major challenges or pains?
Well, all those things you mentioned, they're affecting your business from the outside. So if you want to stay competitive, you kind of need to accept that things are changing. But even if you do accept that, one problem that makes it hard to keep up in this rapidly changing e-commerce landscape is that many companies are stuck in old systems. And in the beginning of this century, e-commerce platforms were all built as monoliths. So as one big ball of everything to solve at least the most common e-commerce needs. And you can extend the platform's functionality or alter its functionality by writing custom modules, but they are built on top of that platform's specific framework. So the storefront, the back office, all the business logic, they all live together in this big monolith running on the same infrastructure. And that's a bit problematic. I mean, if you look at the pros though, you only get one vendor to worry about if you have one e-commerce platform, of course. So that's nice. And there are not that many parts to draw up in a solution diagram. So those things are good. But on the other side, if you have invested a lot in customizing or extending the platform, you are at least to some extent locked into both that vendor and their technology stack of choice. So re-platforming might look as the only option you have to modernize your solution, and those tend to be costly and run over quite a long period of time. And since features are often developed in parallel, releasing becomes problematic. And if releasing is hard, you won't do it as often. And it's hard to sound credible in a claim that you move fast if you can only release like every other month or so. Scalability is another problem area with monoliths. There is, for instance, often one single instance of a database shared between all functionality. So it doesn't matter how much we scale out our web servers, which, by the way, scales out it scales out all functionality equally. But all web servers still depend on this one database. And seeing as all resources are shared, it's also quite possible that a problem in one part of the application affects other parts of the whole application, leading to things like poor performance.
That's truly an inside challenge, Christopher. For most of you, this become or is a huge challenge, and you also know that you constantly need to develop yourself to stay competitive. So the question is, where are you in the digital maturity model? The maturity model spans usually over 5 steps, from companies that today barely operate and appear online to companies that are very far ahead in their digital transformation. Many companies we meet are stuck somewhere in the first 3 phases, which means that you deliver a very basic customer experience. Lithium, a leading Nordic player in B2B e-commerce, recently released a report on digital commerce in Scandinavia. It contains a corresponding maturity ladder, and the report states that a whopping of 76% are in the initial 3 phases of their digital journey.
Okay, so 3 out of 4 businesses are stuck there, right? So what is it that makes it so hard for them to take the next step from the step of walking to actually running?
For example, many companies tend to build strong organizational silos with their own solutions that only cover like a small part of their customer journeys. And as the need of digitize more processes and activities grows, the number of systems also increase. When compared to companies at the top of this maturity model, these companies are more synchronized internally, working more agile in cross-functional teams, and has a customer-centric approach, and thus being much more responsive to change. And the demand is not decreasing, it's actually accelerating. And are you in a position to actually act on those acceleration?
But then you mentioned in an earlier slide that the new customer is a more demanding customer. I recall an old survey saying that 8 out of 10 CEOs believed that they were actually delivering a great customer experience. But only about 1 in 10 customers thought they indeed got a great customer experience. So that's a huge difference. So what would you say these CEOs are missing out or missing about the new demanding customers? What is it that they don't know?
They are probably not focusing on the customer and their journey, or at least in all channels. The main challenge is to master the full customer journey, from attracting customers to loyalize. And the customer journey of today requires a tight connection between both online and offline sales, service, stores, etc. And the customers are utilizing several channels on the journey towards the conversion. Customers are moving back and forth between channels, and surveys are showing that 80% of customers are doing mixed research, meaning using several channels before purchasing online or offline. And it's not uncommon that the customer journey breaks somewhere. When calling customer support, or when a digital solution is a way too slow or in bad shape, and therefore maybe those 1 of 10 that you're mentioning, Christopher.
Okay.
And today, everything is about the customer. Make the customer's experience better, not in silos, in all touch points and connections. At the same time, the customer journeys become more complex and the customer expectations are increasing. So let's start with increased complexity. Think of a journey like an application for a private lease of a vehicle and doing this digital. First, we have to drive traffic to our site, creating a need. We do that with like optimize SEO, inbound marketing activities, ads. We have to inspire our visitors when they're coming to our site, make it easy to evaluate products and services. We do that with articles, reviews, and recommendations. And when they are in the purchase stage, we have this application where you like maybe select a car, you add services, you add accessories, apply for this private lease, you provide proof that you are you, sign a contract, pay for accessories via card, invoice, or through dealer, and then you deliver the car either through a delivering or a pickup or appointment, and then the customer can start driving. Then we also have to activate the customer afterwards and loyalize. Welcome the customer through maybe automated mails, remind about services, upsell, and guide. Think about what that means from an integration perspective, backend processes, tech stack, organization involvement. It becomes complex, but we have to do it. And I also said that the customer expectations are increasing. To illustrate this, we can take a look at the CX pyramid, a way to categorize user experiences. Many companies can deliver solutions that solve specific customer needs, meaning from a functional, reliable, and useful. This is illustrated at the bottom of this pyramid. If you are a typical budget-focused company, you usually only see a value in achieving up to level 3 and thereby miss increased customer loyalty, increased sales, and many other beneficial things that you get from a committed customer. As we move further up in the pyramid and focus more on the experiences of our customer, we create services that are easy to use, create convenience. And it has really been a game changer to deliver everything above the red line.
Okay, so if your business could deliver an above the red line experience, you were pretty safe, right? But in what way has the pandemic affected the customer's expectations?
Yes, this was actually before Corona, because what's happening now is that the ultimate convenience has been more and more become a commodity as of today. We have raised the bar during the pandemic. Today, let's say we call it in the new world, we have to create services that customers talk about, wants to share and recommend. And we need to focus more on the customer behind the data as well. We have to create service and a behavior that customers doesn't want to be without. Think of a portal that is so easy to order from that they want to come back and back and back. And that is creating a competitive advantage. You can also think like Apple and think Uber's services and try to apply that thinking to how you work, how you create services, how you as a company create innovation. For today, the experience is more important than price and products, regarding to several reports. In fact, Gartner surveys showed that 81% of companies expect to compete mostly on or entirely on the basis of experiences in the future. We can take a look at some B2C examples of what these changes look like in your everyday lives. We can always see as many movies or series as we want on Netflix today. We don't have to go to the store to buy food anymore. We order something online, we expect delivery the next day. Buying a cup of coffee at your kid's football game is now super simple when you can pay with your phone. The question is, after now 4 or 5 slides with this in mind, can you imagine what it takes for you to make a move on that ladder from one step to another, solely from a customer journey and customer expectation, customer experience perspective? With your existing technology stack and the way you operate your business as of today, are you prepared for delivering a great customer experience at any time and everywhere? Customers also expect speed and flexibility, but that is not really what I'm referring to here. We will also be challenged by employees, stakeholders internally. Probably there have never been so much demand, ideas, business requirements from internal stakeholders. And the desire to change have perhaps never been greater than now. Stakeholders are certainly discussing customer experience, speed and flexibility, new business models, new countries, new channels, extended offers, new target groups, new journeys.
Yeah, and because the competition is in constant change, you need your business to be agile. You need to move forward with speed. You need to be more efficient in how you learn, in how you develop, and how you deploy, how you analyze the outcome of your changes, and how you adapt to this information. But not only once or twice a year, but as a part of your day-to-day business. You also want your services to be available 24/7, right? Whenever your customers want you should be there. And to have stable availability while pushing down the operational cost, it must be easy and hassle-free to scale the capacity in or out. Having a plan and apply for capacity a week in advance is not enough. And with an increasing number of customer touchpoints, it's also important to use them well, to have an efficient and unified communication in all these channels.
And don't forget freedom to experiment and create innovation. To succeed, organizations need to create speed and flexibility in being able to change. Adapting to change must be a part of your strategy. We don't know what the future will look like. More than change will be a central and integral part of that. So we have to think different.
Yeah, all we really can say about the future is that it will be different. So a strategy is needed to handle that. One that will enable you to react to these unknown changes and to adapt to them. And to do so without a whole digital transformation or re-platforming project. And that means that, first of all, you need to make sure you have the ability to adapt. Because if you're limited to your infrastructure, you will not be able to change. If your platform does not allow you to experiment or quickly replace functionality and so on, you might not be able to adapt to the market or your competition. That's why it's absolutely necessary to ensure that you get the ability to be flexible. But even if you have the ability to adapt, you also need to make sure that you can do that with confidence. So things like automated builds, test automation. I mean, if it's quick and easy to deploy, monitor, and troubleshoot errors, and easy to take a step back if things actually fail, all those things give you confidence to change because you know things will be all right.
And you also have to be organized to be flexible. Having an operational structure willing and able to adapt to new data, environment, or customer expectations. Remember the ladder. Companies in the top are more synchronized internally, working agile in cross-functional teams. How do we then solve it from a business perspective? Gartner is saying, compose the future. Because the pandemic have highlighted problems in business models that for years focused on efficiency. Organizations that once were efficient suddenly become fragile at a time when they needed to be flexible. Business that were smart moved to a more modular setup, creating what Gartner called a composable business. And Gartner have outlined 4 basic principles for a composable business. In short, you could say composable business means creating an organization made from interchangeable building blocks. Think Lego blocks. The idea is to have a modular setup that enables you to rearrange or reorient as needed, depending on external or internal factors, like a shift in customer expectations or values, or sudden change in supply chain or materials. Think Suez Channel earlier this year. So you can flex beyond your core competencies, listen to what customers need at a special time, and use your organization and platform to move from an idea to a product launch. When you combine Gartner's principles with the building blocks of composable business, you enable your organization to pivot quickly regarding to Gartner. And the three building blocks of composable business are composable thinking, which keeps you from losing your creativity to predict the future. Composable business architecture ensures you that your organization keeps your flexibility and resilient. And then you have composable technologies that brings everything together. So in short, composing is about be flexible, fluid, continuous, and with a lot of improvisation possibilities. So, as a final part of this webinar, let's talk about composable from a commerce perspective and what that means.
Yeah, so what is composable commerce anyway? Well, the company Elastic Path, they define composable commerce as a modern approach by which e-commerce teams are empowered to select and assemble various best-of-breed commerce solutions and compose them to satisfy their exact business requirements. And they also state that the composable commerce solution must be modular, open, and business-centric. Modular as in being composed of several independent and autonomous modules or packaged business capabilities. Open as in not limited to a certain technology stack, since the modules must be able to talk to each other. And business-centric in that it must be focused on the business needs and give the business users the tooling they need. So instead of being stuck with the capabilities that came with an all-in-one platform, that might include a light PIM, basic CMS, and a mediocre search, you will have more freedom in composing what works best for your business.
And some assumptions from Gartner. By 2023, 50% of new commerce capabilities will be incorporated as API-centric SaaS services. So as online services, probably with a subscription plan that gives you the functionality you need. Another assumption, by 2023, organizations that have adopted to composable approach will outpace competition by 80% in the speed of new feature implementation. So because they don't have the same limitations, they are both able and comfortable with rolling out feature after feature at a high pace.
Yes, and of course we want to be part of those 80% faster companies. So looking back at the Monolith, even though it has something called modules, they're not independent or autonomous, since they only work inside the Monolith. And they're not open either, since they depend a lot on the specific e-commerce platform. So now if we look at what a composable architecture would look like instead, here we see that the storefront is separated from the rest. And instead of one big e-commerce package, the e-commerce capabilities are provided by several business capability packages from different vendors. And if you need to, you can provide your own packaged business capabilities to the solution using whatever technology stack you see fit. As long as it's possible to communicate with them using open standards, you can use them in a composable solution. So the customer-facing storefront and other channels too will then consume these business capabilities through exposed APIs, tailoring the user interface so it works well for the specific business needs. Yeah, in all channels. And if you build your commerce solution based on these packaged business capabilities, you want them to adhere to the MACH architecture principles. So the M here is for microservices. And in contrast with a monolith, that is a very large service with a lot of capabilities, a microservice is a very small service focused on a single business capability. And each microservice is developed, deployed, and managed on its own, just like the monolith, but it's just much smaller. And then we have the A, which is API first. So when developing your business capabilities, make sure they are built with an API first mindset, meaning that they are built to be consumed by applications using open standards for communication. And then we have C for cloud native, because only with a true cloud native solution will you get the benefits of scalability and manageability for a SaaS service. So if you're running on virtual machines in the cloud, it will not make life much easier. So it needs to be cloud native, not only move up into the cloud. And finally, H stands for headless. There should not be any dependencies to a head, the user interface. So you should instead have full flexibility in using any head you want on top of the business capabilities. So be it an iPhone app, a desktop app written in Java, or a website written in .NET or Node.js. So having the head, the user interface, separated from the body, the business capabilities, means that it's possible to make changes in the head without being tied to the release cycle of the body. So you get much more flexibility, at least on the user interface side. So looking at the pros and cons with Composable Commerce, and if we compare it to the monolith, we are no longer locked into one vendor or one technology stack. So with this freedom, we are now able to choose best of breed components, regardless of whether they are written in Java, C# or anything else. You get great scalability, where each part of the solution can be scaled independently. You get high performance. Since you now work with smaller pieces, you also can innovate faster, both on the front-end side and the back-end side. But on the flip side, well, you probably will have to deal with more than one vendor. So handling multiple agreements and invoices are a consequence. And the system app will have a few more things on it too, compared to just one big box. So to summarize then, so a monolithic e-commerce platform that consists of one giant ball of everything makes it very hard to move forward and innovate. Something else is needed to stay competitive. And by separating the head from the body, a step can be taken in the right direction. By doing this, experimentation on the customer-facing side is no longer held back by long release cycles on the back end. And when we want the same freedom and flexibility on the back end as in the front end, then a fully composable solution will enable the needed agility and innovation speed for all parts of your e-commerce solution.
So some last comments here, Christopher. So we see that the world is changing rapidly and you have to stay competitive. You have to have this ability to deploy digital capabilities and launch use cases at speed, and that drives a huge competitive advantage. So think different, think flexibility as a strategy, think composable commerce, think MACH, but also that you organize yourself so you have the ability and confidence to actually make it happen. And I think that summarizes this part, and I think we have now talking 30 minutes, Christopher, so let's open up for questions. I will open up the...
Please write your question on the question panel here to your right, I think, and we will see if we can answer them.
I have one question here Christopher.
Yep.
How do I start? Best practice for approaching this thinking?
Yeah, that's a good question and a big question. So big actually that is the topic of the next webinar. So stay tuned on the 21st, and we'll talk a lot more about that.
Great. And I have another question. You were talking about high performance and high developing speed. What can I expect?
Yeah, there are lots of sources of information depending on what you look at. But so there is one MACH. What you call it? Yeah,
You mean
yeah, the ambassador, yeah, MACH architecture ambassador. Has said that you can, with a MACH architecture and composable commerce, you can get 50% smaller teams, but they are more efficient than before, and you also get up to 5 times faster feature development because you have this flexibility of quickly releasing something, because you're not releasing the whole part of your solution, only specific parts of it. So you can deploy more often. For instance, we have a customer that last week, in one single day, they deployed new changes almost, I think it was almost 20 times during that day. So that's pretty impressive if you compare to a couple of years ago when they also had this big monolith solution that were released maybe once a month tops. So they have a lot more flexibility, and they are much faster also in their feature development.
Okay. Another question. Another new technique. Why? Also a good question. We will also talk about that in the next webinar, but it's not actually new technologies we're talking about here. It's more that they comes together, and maybe that the cloud is the catalyst for this. And why? Yeah, we have talked about that a little bit, and you have to be able to change and able to change faster and stay competitive. I think that is the hugest why you should approach this kind of composable technology. I don't see any.
You often have the option of buying in on a SaaS solution quite cheaply. So you can start small, and you don't have to invest anything. You just start with like a monthly subscription of their services. So that's an enabler for sure. And also in the cloud, where you don't have to invest money up front to buy servers and things like that. You have everything. You have infinite capacity in the cloud. So those are definitely enablers for this new modern commerce era.
Great. And in the next webinar, Christopher, we will talk much more about different kind of questions, usually coming from the C-levels, and we will talk more about how you can grow as you go, giving you examples on how you can expand to different kind of channels, more business capabilities, and expand your backend and slowly grow your implementation of commerce. And we also talk about the importance of having data in the correct way, so we actually can scale from a data perspective as well, especially when we're coming into the customer journey and have the data in one place, and the same for product information, so we can scale it over different kind of heads. But that will be the next webinar. And after this webinar, we will send you an email with a link to the recording. And if you have any questions, please contact us. And with that, we say bye for us.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.